Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Pregame Show Podcast. PCA is here, and so are we. 3 wide, Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Corey Friedman. Credit to Cody Del Mendo, 10,000 feet in the air for not being here. But he's going to be there for PCA's Major League debut whenever that happens. No, he might not be there tonight. So if PCA does play tonight, Cody will miss it by 1.
I doubt he will be there tonight, considering he is on the flight.
Credit to PCA for not playing today if he doesn't. So that
would be I feel like that would be typical that Cody would be flying out there and miss it by like 24 hours. Right?
Credit to Cody for being there for PCA's Major League debut. I think the Cubs heard he was going and were like, we got to plan something big. Got to plan something big for the guy.
Credit to the Cubs for doing that.
Credit to the Cubs. Big of them. So Pete Crow, we have multiple things to talk about. We have Pete Crow-Armstrong news. We have the ALLCITY news. And we might even sprinkle in a little bit, boy, the Bears suck. But that's later in the podcast.
We have to?
Yeah, I mean, listen, here's what I will say before we get into the losing stuff. We'll do the good news first. Losing 3 out of 4 to the Diamondbacks, yuck. But it wasn't as bad as that Bears game. Pete Crow-Armstrong, the Cubs' top prospect. Some say as high as what, like 15?
I think he was 12.
12, number 12 on MLB Pipeline. He was in the top 10 at some point this year, but the re-rankings after the draft. But so he's obviously a pretty highly touted prospect.
Very highly touted. Finally here. We finally get what we want. He is not in the starting lineup for tonight, but he is available for tonight's game against the Rockies when it starts. We're going to do a full post-game show when it's over. We have not decided anything about beer bat. I was about to say,
who's going to do the beer bat? That was my thought.
Was the beer bat left?
Ooh,
I think it was left.
I believe so.
I don't know. At one point, Cody was going to pack it, and then I suggested buying one at Coors Field.
Well, remember we had the whole discussion about whether he was going to put it in his bag.
It is here.
What he was going to do.
So hopefully what Cody will do is buy a Rockies beer bat, and I told him just take the CHGO stickers and wrap it all the way around it.
Didn't work.
We'll see if that's what's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen.
I'll do it on Wednesday if they sweep the series.
So you will not do a beer bat tonight. What if PCA hits a home run?
I'll do it tonight if they win.
Joey will either do a beer bat or he will...
Or I'll K9 for you, Stucky.
Or he will K9 it, stick his tooth in the can, and chug it that way.
I'm with that one. I like that one.
That seems like a good plan.
Okay.
Sure. Whatever's there for the fans.
So are you excited about PCA being called up? Can he save the season after losing 3 out of 4?
I don't think the season needs saving.
Oh, okay.
But,
well, everything's doomsday around here after watching that Bears game.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm excited. Obviously, we'll see how he gets used, but this is a big-time prospect. And I think we've been talking about him for a while, even leading up to the rosters expanding and stuff like that, because he just has skills that play. They're going to start him, I think. That's what Ross said. He's going to hit, and he hit a grand slam yesterday for Iowa. Like, he brings a lot with the bat, but he can provide a lot to this team in a playoff race, even if he never steps to the plate. And he should, right? I'm not saying that, but he can come in late and play defense. He is an excellent center fielder. Reading some of the stuff from the minor league broadcasters, I mean, you have guys who have been watching minor league baseball, calling minor league baseball for their whole lives, whole careers, saying this is the best they've ever seen somebody patrol center field. The way that he reads the ball, the jumps he gets, things like that, this is the best they've ever seen. He can steal bases. He can provide a spark when you need it. We've seen them struggle to score runs in some of these games. He can make things happen, right? So I'm really excited because these are those moments you live for when you go through those rebuilds, right? We had a lot of fun. Javi came up in the same ballpark, same thing. KB's debut, even when Rizzo debuted, like, you live for this stuff when you live through a rebuild, kind of seeing the fruits of that labor come up, and for it to be in the middle of a playoff race, there's no more exciting way for him to join this team.
Yeah, and I was on the DMVR Rockies podcast actually with our friend Patrick Lyons earlier, and I kind of mentioned that when they did the whole trade deadline sell-off, and Javi went to New York, and Chris Bryant went to San Francisco, Rizzo went to the Yankees, obviously. The returns, they haven't really gotten any production out of the returns, right? Like, Canario's came up and only had one at bat, but he also had 2 major injuries last winter, so like just him playing for like even getting a call up at all this season was like kind of unexpected, but like it was a nice surprise to see considering what he went through. But like Caleb Killian has struggled in his major league career when he's been up.
Those first 3 innings of that start against the Cardinals were really exciting, though.
They had you, right? But like Kevin Alcantara's still young and moving his way through the system. I don't remember who the other guy they got for Rizzo was, but he's not even in the organization anymore. It was someone remind me. Someone remind me of his name, but he's not in the system anymore. Yeah. So like they're still waiting on these returns, right? And so like Crow-Armstrong, we know he's pretty much the face of like the Cubs' future, right? Like this is their top prospect, a top 12 prospect in baseball, depending on where you're looking. Like this is the future coming up right now, and you're not going to put, there you go. Niran has it. Vizcaino, yeah, there you go.
Right.
But like you don't want to put the expectation on Crow-Armstrong to like save the team and be this major impact player for the Cubs for this season. However, he's a future. You want to see him do well because you want to start seeing, the returns from those trades do something. And because, Jed Hoyer got a lot of flack for that. He made a tough decision to hit the reset button and send 3, World Series champions out of town, 3 World Series heroes. Cubs fans loved him, sent them out of town. Like, he got a lot of flack for it. But he knew at the time, he said it at the time, we all have said it since, that, like, you're not gonna like win those trades right away, right? The returns you're getting are young. A lot of them are young guys. Crow-Armstrong was 19 when they got him. So you're going to have to wait and see how those end up. So far, they haven't ended up that well because the guys that have come up haven't been like major contributors or anything. Crow-Armstrong, I don't expect him to be an everyday player here, but I do expect him to be able to get a lot more opportunities to make impacts, whether that's defensive replacements late in games, whether that's, showing surprising pop at the big league level, whether that's getting on base, whether he's at the plate or just pinch running and causing havoc on the base pass, because we know that's what he can do. But my whole thing is like, we're more than 2 years past the trade deadline when they broke up the core. We got to start seeing some returns from that soon. And Crow-Armstrong might be the guy that really gets that ball rolling as far as, okay, they did the right thing. I still think they did the right thing anyway, but there's definitely holdouts. There's definitely holdouts that want to start seeing the returns.
We just want to see Crow-Armstrong play. I whether or not Canario should have played, whatever. I want to see him play. It doesn't mean he has to start. It just means he has to play. Like Corey was saying, there are ways he can impact the game. Now that said, I do want to see him start some. Like tonight, you see Wisdom's at first base. If there were the same scenario tomorrow, again, Candelario's got an injury, and so he's kind of day-to-day right now. Wisdom's at first base. Okay, if Bellinger's playing first, now you have PCA you can put in center.
Yeah.
So that's something I could see, especially with the Candelario injury. I could see that happening here the next week a couple of times, that Bellinger's at first and PCA's in center.
Yeah, and I think this is a good opportunity for PCA in particular. Colorado is obviously notoriously a very kind of strange ballpark, right? It's big, the ball flies.
The altitude, yeah.
You know what sounds great for that? A guy that can go run anything down, right? Tauchman has struggled at the plate recently. I still think Tauchman gives you really good, like, professional at-bats. He sees a lot of pitches. He's played good defense in center, but we are not in the heat of the summer of Mike Tauchman where you would feel uneasy not starting him, right? Like, he has cooled off. You can be a little more particular with those matchups. But even, to like Ryan's point about bringing guys up, like, it's also just the sort of symbol of, like, what PCA coming up and hopefully getting in this action and helping them lock down a playoff spot and maybe the division, what that means, right? Like, you think of all the guys that have come up throughout this year, and coming into the year, we're still debating they're not calling it a rebuild. Where are we in this process? Are they selling 2 weeks before the deadline, right? Like, to find ourselves at this point where you are competing for a playoff spot. You hold a playoff spot right now. You are bringing up your top prospect. You are elevating other guys to different levels. Like I think it was our good friend Greg Huss saying that James Triantos was headed to Double-A. We've seen other guys move up. Luke Little coming up recently, even Canario coming up and getting healthy again. It's symbolic of the organization kind of being in that spot. You don't have to compare it directly to 2014, 2015, right? Because not every team is the same. Not every cycle is the same. But it has that feeling of like, okay, guys are moving up, guys are getting called up, they're competing for the playoffs. It's go time for this organization. So like heading into next offseason, you're making a lot of progress in terms of where things are going. And I think this PCA call-up is perhaps the most symbolic of all of these things.
This feels different also than when Nico Horner was called up for the first time. Nico was out of necessity. This isn't necessarily the same situation. For me, this is your roster right now has to have the best guys available to you, period. I don't care what level they're at. If you think this, if you rank your players 1 to 30, you better have your best guys on the roster right now. So even if Pete Crow-Armstrong doesn't play a ton, you're not sacrificing his development by having him here the rest of the season. He's had plenty of at-bats in the minor league system this year. So a couple of garbage at-bats at AAA, whatever. Great. He had a grand slam last night. Terrific. I believe currently he will gain more experience by being around this team in the hunt for a playoff spot. Whether that's impacting it on a daily basis, whether that's impacting it just as a defensive replacement, whether that's pinch hitting occasionally, I don't care. Just being there, it to me is the next phase in his development. Then it is being an everyday player.
Yeah,
and that doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah, when you mentioned like having the best players that you got available on the roster, and this is something that going into that roster expansion on September 1st, but we had talked to Jed Hoyer a few days prior to that, just kind of about September calls and how aggressive they might be with them. And I know a lot of people wanted Pete Crow-Armstrong up on September 1st, right? And it didn't happen for reasons. But like it was one of those where when Jed talked about it, he was kind of asked like, how aggressive would you be with some of those kind of calls? And he did compare it to the Nico Horner situation. As you mentioned, the Nico one's a little different just because that was necessity. This isn't necessarily at that same level. But he had mentioned like the spot that they're in, like it helps you be comfortable being more aggressive in some of those situations where it's like, what's best for this guy? Like if this was, a season like last year, Pete Crow-Armstrong might not even get the call up this year, right? If they're not competing for a playoff spot, if it's, they may have been letting Matt Mervis play most of this entire time, right? Alexander Canario may have gotten more than one at bat, and while he was up, right? So it's a different situation, but the fact that they are competing for a playoff spot and they need their best guys on this roster to help them get there, that allowed them, to be more comfortable being aggressive and making this move. I mean, you asked me on the show a month or so ago, right? Maybe a little bit longer, do you see PCA coming up? And at the time, we were still kind of in this, like, it might have actually been before the trade deadline because I thought we were still kind of in that spot where, like, we're probably leaning towards them selling, right? Now they've completely played themselves out of that position, and they need someone like Pete Crow-Armstrong, again, not to be this everyday player, savior, going to lead in the playoffs or something, but to do what he does well and to answer the call when David Ross puts him in and needs something out of him. I think if you're expecting that, like, don't put the crazy expectations on him, but you can expect him to play good defense, base run, and maybe get some hits when he gets the at-bats, when he gets the chance.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and those things really matter in a
playoff
that's why
race.
Yes. You are in a tight race. They're, I believe, 3 out of the division after the weird Yankee-Brewer game yesterday.
Yeah.
You're holding on to that second spot. You're on the Phillies' heels. You're trying to fend everybody else off, playing elite defense, right? Being aggressive on the bases, taking those extra bases, all that stuff really matters. How many one-run games have we watched this team play in the last 2 weeks, right? You know what really helps you win those games? Playing tight on the margins, catching every extra ball, taking every extra base, finding ways to grind out those little runs, and PCA can help you do that, and he can do that without starting. But hopefully he does. But he does not need to start every day to provide those things.
It's the most excited I've been about a Cubs call-up since Schwarber?
Since Caleb Killian last year?
No, I never really.
I'd say KB for me.
Since Chris Bryant?
I would say so.
Wow.
And they are not the same player. Don't twist my words. But I just, in terms of being pumped for that happening, I would say KB.
It's got to be one of those two.
What we really need is, just like Javi, who he was traded for, he's got to make his debut here in Colorado and go oppo, right, for his first hit, home run,
right?
Because that side by side, man.
What if Cody? Because there's nobody at this ballpark except for a hand. There's going to be nobody at that ballpark. No Rockies fan is showing up to this game. Sorry, DNVR. There's going to be nobody there. There'll be more Cubs fans at these games the next 3 nights than there will be Rockies fans. I can almost guarantee you that. Because Denver's full of Cubs fans anyway, because before they had the Rockies franchise, they were all Cubs fans. They had nobody to root for, so it was like WGN, why not? I was there for my first internship was in Denver the first season the Rockies opened, and half the crowd every day was still in Cubs hats. And when the Cubs came, it was crazy. So I know there's going to be Cubs fans there. What if Cody's the guy? What if PCA...
Cody to get the ball?
That's what I'm saying. What if PCA hits the first home run and Cody's out there? Goes over, makes the catch. Credit to him. He makes the catch.
Now, I don't know if this transfers, right? But if we're asking...
will Cody give the ball back?
Is he sitting in the bleachers or in the outfield?
Well,
in
it could be so empty there that he could be just in the right field corner and just run across and get it.
You might have to battle that one guy that goes
Cody,
around
where
all
you,
the stadium
where are you sitting?
trying to catch fly balls.
Nick G says Coors Field, Wrigley West. That is true.
If he goes oppo, if Cody stays true to himself, that would work because it would be to the left field bleachers.
Right.
As we all know, Cody is a left field man.
Left field bleachers.
If he hits it to the same spot as Javi, though, Cody would have to be changing his allegiances. Now, I don't know. I don't sit in the bleachers. Are you left field? Does that extend to all ballparks, or is that only a Wrigley
I don't
Field
know.
thing?
Something that's
I don't
Cody will have to
that.
answer that.
I would sit in right field or left field or center field, whatever.
I don't sit in the bleachers at all, so I don't know.
Oh, excuse me.
Flex.
Flex.
Big flex.
Yes.
A lot of Cubs fans don't
flex.
think that's a flex. They think it's weird. But
Can we get that quote up real quick? While we're still on PCA, just kind of a quick quote from our friend Patrick Lyons over at DNVR Rockies. He was over there, obviously, at Coors Field. David Ross talked pregame. Just a little snippet of what he said about Pete Crow-Armstrong. From David Ross, quote, "He earned the call-up. I think he's a really good fit for us. Big outfield here in Colorado. Definitely can play some defense, steal a base. He'll get some starts mixed in. We'll kind of slide him in. I'm not going to force anything. We've got a group of guys who have gotten us here, but he can definitely help us out." So this tracks with exactly how I would think David Ross would think about Pete Crow-Armstrong coming up. The saying straight up he'll get some starts mixed in, that's a good sign that he'll actually play, right? But just knowing that, especially at Coors Field, how that outfield, as Corey was saying, the altitude, how all that plays, having him there, you may see him get in as a defensive replacement or even start one of these games just to help man that outfield. But just mixing him in, maybe starting him, but just having him there. And I know Ross is going to keep pushing the trust that he has in the guys that did get him there. And for good reason. They all, as a collective, work to get themselves from 10 games below to where they are now. They all did. So they have earned that trust from him. But again, this all tracks with what I would expect David Ross to say, but him saying straight up that there might be some starts in there for him.
Right.
I think that's a good sign where it's when people are like, oh, there's going to be another Alexander Canario thing. It's no, I think it's a different situation.
I think they're entirely different.
And you're going to see Pete Crow-Armstrong play. Again, don't put the expectations too high, but you will see him play for as long as he's up here.
And again, reminder to everybody out there, CHGO is one of the only places in the world with boots going to be on the ground. We're going to have boots on the ground in Denver. Cody Delmendo is flying there immediately. He currently is on what could be described as the poop plane. We don't know if the carpet was pulled up, but he's on a plane right now, 10,000 feet.
Well, and
10,000 feet. He's in the air. He won't be there for the start of this game tonight, but we will have boots on the ground in this series.
We have the unlikely alliance, as I am dubbing them, in Arizona of one Cody Delmendo and Dr. Brendan Miller.
Oh wow, yeah.
That is going to be...
So who knows what kind of vibes that's going to bring.
Because it's a fun... It's like one of those buddy cop movies where they're just complete opposites. Like, Cody is all about vibes and Delmetrics, whereas Brendan is like throwing Python code into our Slack to show us how to make his
What's the movie
graphs.
with Adam Sandler and he's the anger management with Jack Nicholson?
Yes.
That's how I kind of see them. That's how I see them interacting.
Yes, I can see, Cody's like slamming beers at Chase Field in Arizona, and Brendan is looking at Tyone's horizontal break on his fastball. He's got Baseball Savant on his phone. I will say, for our dear friend Brendan, he is as much of a diehard Cubs fan as anybody else. When I've watched games with him, you'd think he was anybody else in the bleachers. Right. You don't know what's going on in his head. But
it's the white doctor's coat and the stethoscope.
But to finish on Ross's quote, again, they're very different scenarios. I know we're all some people are scarred, let's say, from the Canario thing a week ago. They just wanted to see him play, right? And I was one of those people. I get it. We've argued about it. It's over, right? He's not on the team anymore.
He was optioned.
Can move on,
that was
right?
one of the moves today.
But with PCA, I think we can debate the merit of the guys that got us here are going to play thing. It's whatever. We can talk about it later. But I think he says that in this instance, one, because he's been saying it, and it's mostly true for how he's writing the lineup, but also to, make sure that people are not putting that expectation on PCA. Right, like he is not going to let anybody be tricked into thinking like he is taking over center field tonight until they, either win the World Series or get eliminated.
That's tomorrow.
I think he's just trying to make sure that everybody is a huge prospect. Like, don't let the pressure exceed the moment. Like, calm down. We're gonna get him in there, but like, don't come in here thinking that this is something bigger than it is, right? And setting PCA up for failure if he doesn't come in and immediately light the world on fire.
Yeah, and when he says...
By the way, Peter says the only issue with PCA starting in center is that it's a huge outfield. To me, that's the reason to put him out there.
It could be. And I think...
Oh, yeah, of course it is. Yeah. He's going to go run it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Lou.
Sorry. Credit to me.
Yeah, credit to you for...
Credit to me. Rick DeHouse says, I can't even believe we're debating this kid taking over Bellinger. Well, I'm talking about Bellinger taking over first base, which is what I really wanted. I want Bellinger playing first base 9 out of 10 days. To me, that's the way the Cubs get the best lineup, and they can still technically stay defensively probably their best, especially with PCA or Tauchman. I don't care who you have in center field. They may not be as good as Cody Bellinger. I don't know. Maybe PCA is better. We may find out he's better, but I think that's something I'm willing to live with, to have Bellinger's defense at first base, because I think he's clearly the best first baseman they have.
Oh, that's not even close.
Anyways, we're going to talk about ALLCITY here in a second as we get ready.
Yeah.
And Rick DeHouse said, Luke, I met you in the parking lot yesterday, referring to the tailgate takeover. Big tailgate, the first tailgate.
Oh, yeah.
Did you say hi, Rick? Did we... Were we just talking?
He saw you or met you?
Saw me? You didn't run me down?
Stuckey is a Chicago sports media legend, so he meets a lot of people.
Yeah, right. I was there making sure people had the CHGO wristbands on before they started taking our free 3-1-2 out of the cold
Stuckey's generally walking around.
Let me tell you, I slapped a few hands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's generally walking around with like secret security detail as well.
Well, I did have my reflector Shady Rays on.
I didn't know that Stuckey was a narc, but
I was there. Anyways, that was a good time. The next one, by the way, the next tailgate for that location, which we have is Wabash and Cermak, will be the Broncos game October 1st, which is the final game of the regular season for the Cubs against the Brewers. So we may have a busy October 1st.
So I guess I will not be at the tailgate if that's the day. I guess we'll.
It's in Milwaukee, but it certainly could mean a lot, for sure.
Yeah, where we're at right now, it's 3 weeks left in the season, 3 games back of the Brewers heading into today. They still are hanging on to that wild card spot. Like, I get the feeling it's going to go down to that last series. Like the winner of that series,
it certainly
Milwaukee,
feels that way. Yeah.
Rick just says, "I saw you. I got shy. Sorry, Daddy." What?
Tread carefully, Luke. You're going to be a meme on the internet.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so our good friend in the chat, Niran, talking about, Ross playing the guys that got us here, and they can't just ditch guys, things like that. Short answer for me, I'm not arguing for that, but I think over the last couple weeks, there's just been opportunities. You have some guys that are cold. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think the issue with Canario that people had was not that he was needed to play every day or he was this savior, but like you have some guys that have awful numbers over the last 30 or so games. They could have taken 1 day off, right? Yeah. Like he could have gotten 1 at bat in a blowout, right? Just to see what he had. You have to give it to, that's it. But in general, I think Ross is right to do that, right? Like you're not just going to replace these guys. Yeah. And again, like that's putting a ton of pressure on PCA if people wanted him to literally be playing every day. Like he is rocketed through the system. Like asking him to just jump in there in a playoff race is a lot. There's a manicuring of how to get a guy comfortable with that. And I think Joe Madden was really good at stuff like that. And, David Ross is getting a chance to show his chops with that as well. But he has a good feel for his players. So I think I trust him with this one. The Canario thing's very different. PCA, they're not going to screw this up.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, with Cody not here, do you guys have any wagers you're putting down tonight? I was wondering if there was a DraftKings, dabble that you were making. Did you make any bets over the weekend on the NFL? Cody talked me into one at the tailgate. He's like, "Oh yeah, I put $10 on what was it? It was Kmet to have a touchdown and Fields to have a touchdown, and he bet 10 to win 200. He had some special bonus that he could boost. I just did, so I'm like, I'm in on that. 10 for $100. Okay, so that didn't work out for me. So now my winnings for the season are down to $5. I'm $5 up on the NFL season.
Yeah, no,
and I might just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm looking at DraftKings right now. If you want to get the Cubs, 1.5 point favorite right here at the end. It's minus 130 on DraftKings. I had some bets on college football and obviously NFL.
Yeah.
The big one that I was very mad about was the Missouri Tigers once again failing to cover against a lesser college football team. They only won by 4, coming in as 21-point favorites. Again, just disappointing me and losing me money. And
how about Hook'em over there, Joey? Joey, man,
I was going to say, did I make any bets this weekend? No. I didn't bet any money. I bet my integrity. And you can go back and listen to Big Ten Bets After Dark. And I laid out exactly the reason that Texas was not only going to cover, they were going to win. Laid it out. I think that was a very astute of me in hindsight.
Congrats. Credit to you.
And you know what? After they won, you didn't brag. Credit to Joey.
Yeah, credit to Joey for that.
Credit to Joey.
Look, I don't know what the odds are, but I wouldn't mind a Patrick Wisdom homer in this one.
Oh wow!
Everybody hates
him. Can you get PCA
because he has
to
a
homer?
Low average?
Can I make a wager for PCA to homer? What are my odds on that?
Let Corey finish his thought.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
No, but like Colorado, if you're gonna play him, this is the spot to play Patrick Wisdom. He can pop a home run here really easily. So
Cody's bet is Bellinger 2 hits, Seiya, I'm assuming 1 hit, and Swanson 2 hits. That's his same game parlay.
Let's see. Patrick Wisdom, if you want to bet on, is plus 350 actually, which isn't that bad for a home run.
I wonder
parlay,
if you could get PCA. Cody, can you tell us that
There's
from
no
10,000
PCA
feet?
on here. Maybe
can I do a write-in ballot on that? Can I get a PCA for plus 200,000 or something?
I don't think so.
Write-in.
Yeah, right.
He's making his own odds.
I called DraftKings and petition. How much would you give me for a PCA home run? He's not in the lineup tonight.
Number 52, by the way.
52, yeah, number 52. What do you think of that? He's not going to stick with that, is he? Or is that...
Well, his number is currently occupied by Morel, right? The number he normally wears, I think. So I don't like it for a star, but for now it's fine. I think he should change it. next year.
Probably. The last player to wear 52 for the Cubs was Ryan Tepera, who did get an MVP vote.
True.
So
erroneous or not.
Yeah. It goes down as an MVP vote. So
good foundation there.
Tepera's one. Cubs to wear 52. I can't think of another.
I'm also curious. This is like a stupid thing to care about, but I'm curious what the justification of his name is on the back of his jersey. Do they go with the long shoehorn?
Yeah, they do the long shoehorn.
They
have to be.
up,
no, they do the long shoehorn.
They really should just let him do PCA.
That would be helpful for the Stitchers.
It just doesn't look good. It's too many letters.
Pete's Colorado arrival.
The Reds, have Encarnacion Strand too. Like some of they're just too long.
Too much.
You got to find a way. It just doesn't look good aesthetically.
Too much. So we're actually out of time. We're going to watch the game. We do want to talk about ALLCITY. We'll talk about that in the post-game show. We'll talk about the game tonight. In the post-game show. We'll talk more about PCA in the post-game show. Who you got, real quick? Who did everybody take? Even though he's not in the lineup, credit to me, I took PCA.
Sure.
I don't think I sent in a pick.
Yeah, I took Belly.
I'll take Patrick Wisdom. Credit to me. I'm going to save his season.
Wisdom.
I'm going to do the Cody.
All right, we'll give you Patrick Wisdom.
Cody is not allowed to make a pick from the airplane, is he?
If he doesn't homer tonight, I didn't say anything. I picked no one.
Cody's across state lines. I don't know if he's... No, we're not going to talk about Rogers. Darren's taking Suzuki.
Would not like to.
He did?
He got sacked and hurt on the first play.
Was that too
Apparently, Rogers hurt his Achilles.
That was unprofessional of me. He did?
Wait, I didn't even see
that. That was unprofessional. That was not nice of me.
Whoops.
Well, okay.
Niren's nickname for PCA, it's just going to be PCA, is Slick Armstrong.
Oh, that's not good. Cart coming for Aaron Rodgers. You don't root
tonight.
For that.
All right, thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Pregame Show podcast. We're back for a full hour afterwards. We'll talk about all that stuff, and we'll talk about a win over the Rockies. And maybe if we're lucky, boots on the ground Del Mendo may call in and join us. We'll see. We might even have, what do they call that, a saber tooth?
Canine.
Canine.
You may canine the can, Joey, if they win. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We'll see you after it's Fly to W.